Good evening to one and all. My name is Saurabh, and I'm your host for the PGC Weekly Podcast session today. I would like to start the podcast series by acknowledging and paying my respects to the Bidjigal and Gadigal peoples, the traditional custodians of the lands, where each of our UNSW campuses are located, and all the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders, past, present, and emerging, and their communities who have shared and practiced their teachings over thousands of years. We recognize the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people's ongoing leadership and contributions, including to business, education, and industry. Today, we have got Mr. Prakash Bhurtal as our guest speaker. He is a chartered accountant and registered tax agent based in Sydney. He is also a senior tax consultant at Prescient Tax and Accounting Services. Also, let me just remind you that this podcast is not just about Mr. Prakash and myself, but it is for everyone who has now joined us through Zoom or listening to us through Facebook Live and probably watching the recorded session afterwards. So, we would be happy to raise any questions you have throughout the session or even after the session is over. So, starting off with the discussion, as we all know that since filing tax returns is a key requirement for all the residents residing in Australia, including the international students, and we have found many international students and temporary residents struggle to understand these basic concepts of tax. Hence, this podcast organized by the UNSW Postgraduate Council is aimed at helping international students to understand various aspects of tax, such as taxable income, deductions, tax offsets, and whatever questions you have throughout the session as well. So our goal is to make you aware of the upcoming tax returns. And it's now time for us to start off with some commonly asked questions by the international students. So my first question for you, Prakash, is how does the taxation system actually work for international students and what are their obligations as an international student?
Thank you, Saurabh. And hi, everyone. Yes, tax is, a bit difficult sometime and complex sometime here in Australia. And as an international student, you will have to face this issue once you are in Australia here. So, yes, being an international student, when it comes to taxation in Australia, it's not that different to the normal citizens or Australian resident. But yes, there are a few exemptions or advantages that the international students have when they lost their taxes. This is because they are in a temporary visa, like student visa, as contrast to the citizens or permanent residents. So most of the rules are similar, but there are few exemptions. There are few benefits to them. So if I have to say the slab, the rates are same. The Medicare levy part, that is one of the component in the whole tax computations, that is exempt in most of the cases for international students, unless these international students come from a reciprocal agreement, from the countries wherein Australia has Medicare reciprocal agreement. They do not have to pay that Medicare levy. So this is the basics for international students. Yes.
Okay, and another question that a lot of students might also want to know here is, Prakash, that are there any specific tax benefits for international students which is only applicable to them and it is not applicable to the permanent residents or citizens?
Okay, if we say about these specific one, then in terms of income or in terms of expenses, there isn't anything specific that it doesn't apply to them. Okay, but when it comes to one form of tax, Medicare levy, it is a part of the whole tax, the Medicare levy, then there is an exemption available that for temporary resident, that Medicare levy, you can claim exemption. So it's a 2% tax on your net income. So if you are a temporary resident, so most of the international students, they are in a student visa.
True.
So they are a temporary resident, so they don't have to pay that one. Or so that's one kind of benefit, you must say. Okay.
Okay. But do you think that there is any specific sort of benefits which you would like to highlight here, other than the one that you have just highlighted?
See, other than this, the rates, the way it is computed, they are all similar because in tax, the residency is different than in the immigration. For the visa purpose, we have permanent residency, we have different form of residency there. But in tax, it's generally if you are here for a course for more than 6 months, then you are a resident for tax purpose. Okay. So once you are a resident for tax purpose, then it's fairly similar with the permanent resident or citizen. Even the permanent resident and citizen are resident for tax purpose,
Yeah.
plus they are citizen and permanent resident. And even the students, they are now become resident for tax purpose. So a lot of tax computations, the formula, income and expenses, all becomes the same. Few like Medicare levy exemptions, they applies to this temporary visa holder.
Sure. The next question is also a pretty popular one related to the tax frauds which are happening in the market currently. And
This is very important.
even I am a victim of that tax fraud. So this is a very common for a caller pretending that they are from the Australian tax office and saying that if the student does not speak with them, a warrant will be issued for their arrest. And another variation is that an officer is already on their way to arrest the student for failing to pay their taxes. And they will state that the student owes money and they must pay immediately to prevent this arrest. So this is a scam and you should not provide any personal information, obviously. But it will be great for all the international students listening to you now, if you can clarify to them on how the taxation office really communicates to them and how can they identify a scammer.
Yes, it's very important questions you have brought up here. Even I receive this sort of calls, but it's easy for me to tackle this. So these groups, they are very active around this part of the year. Even throughout the year, they are always calling, sometimes saying, okay, you have this much amount of debt. You need to pay your debt now, or else officer will be coming you, or there is a case going on your behalf, and all these things. And because these international students, they are fairly new into this country, then they do not understand the whole, tax laws, how it works, how the ATU communicates. And then sometime, they may be, not complying with their visa requirements, and then they have that fear inside, and then they fall in prey with these sort of people, quite easily. So first thing around this scam you need to know is, if someone is calling you and then, speaking you such a way that you're going to have to pay now, or else officer is coming, then you need to smell something, because here in this country, even if you have some overdue tax debts, or even if you have something, you haven't lodged some of your tax returns, the tax office never, call you that way and then just pressurize you. They are so calm, and most of the time they communicate via, postal addresses. Or see, most of the students, they should, register for that MyGov login. The MyGov is very nice, a very good, form of communicating with ATO, or knowing that what is happening with your ATO account. Yeah. So whatever they communicate to you, a copy would be there in your MyGov account. So if someone is calling you for something, and then if you have a MyGov account, you go inside and check on the correspondences, they are in your inbox. There is particular lot of emails coming from ATO to you. Even if they have to ask you for something, like if you haven't paid, if they have a reminder, they will give a email, and that email comes to you in your MyGov account. So if there is any other communications from them, a copy is there in our MyGov account. Okay, so if you see that MyGov account and your email, you see those communications there. Even if they send you SMS and all this, still a copy, will be there. It will be a notification that they have sent a SMS and all this. So one way is, okay, you have your MyGov account. You can check, okay, what is the official correspondence from the ATO to me. Okay, this one point. And then if you see your MyGov very clean, like you have lost everything, your tax, nothing is due, and in your communications history, there is nothing, and in your inboxes in MyGov, there is nothing. That means there is no such communication, And even then, if you have your tax agent, like if you have done your taxes with your tax agent, most of the time, if there is anything, they will first call to your tax agent as well. So this is the usual process they do, and they never sound that, horrifying thing, that pressurizing. They never. I speak to them every day, they don't communicate that way. So always, if you receive this sort of call, be very calm. You don't have to worry at all. It feels like, okay, they can do something for me for that particular moment. But it's so common these days. Do not worry at all. So just you can say, okay, just, hang up your phone or just say, my taxes are managed by my agent. I don't have to worry about this. And never, ever give any details, anything, date of birth, TFN number, bank details, nothing, never. So just hang up your phone. Even though sometimes ATO call, it's not that ATO will never call you. Yes, these days, there are a couple of calls, it's genuine calls from ATO as well. But if you say, no, I'm not comfortable giving this, then they will, they're okay with it. Okay. They will come up with another form of communications with you. So in whatsoever situation, don't give any information unless you are 100% sure about, yes, it is the ATO and it is something really urgent. And also, even the ATO communicates to you or calls to you genuinely, it's not that you have to do something today. It's not that urgent. It's always they will give you a time, 1 month, 1.5 months, 2 months, 6 months. So never that urgency, is there when ATO genuinely calls or communicates to you. So this way you need to find out these are all scams and don't give anything. Okay? So that's the solution, yeah.
Sure. I think that is a great answer, Prakash, because a lot of these scammers generally ask you for your MasterCard details, your Visa card details, which is you
and
can
also they will tell you to buy, gift cards. Okay, they'll say go and buy gift card and then just give me a number, that number. So this way they are not tracked this way, because if you send money to someone in this country, you can track it.
Absolutely.
There is audit trail involved in it. So they don't want to get caught. So you buy a gift card and then there is a number, there some code, and then anyone can use that code to, get the money or benefit on that gift card. So sometimes they say about the gift card, sometimes they will say, okay, $4,000. Then the student says, I have only $1,000. Then say, fine. Even $1,000, you pay 1,000. Rest, don't worry. So they will come up like this. They will start negotiating, bargaining, and all this. And in real ATO, it doesn't work that way. Anything you see that is not normal, it's all fake.
Sure. And also, there are a lot of students coming from abroad. They also don't know about the different tax slab rates here in Australia. So would you like to brief them on the different tax rate slabs here in Australia?
Yes. And the good thing is this financial year, that is 2021, the slabs has become more, beneficial to everyone. So currently what we have is the best slab from nil till $18,200. There is no tax on it. So it's a tax-free threshold. Okay. And after 18,200 till 45K, it's 19%. Okay. And then after 45 till 120K, it's 32.5%. And after that, till 180K is 37%. And after 180K, everything is 45%. Okay. So earlier, it used to be a bit different. Till last year, 1920, the slab was, instead of 45K, it was 37. And 19% was applied up till 37. Thereafter, 37 till 90K, it was 32.5, and after 90 to 180 it was 37, and then after 180 it was always 45. Okay, so this is the basic structure. So whenever you have your income around these brackets, then you can see these sort of formulas in your mind. So what we say clearly, most of the international students here, they really don't have full working rights anyway. So most of the time they fall under the, up to 45 or maybe max of 90, because if you're not working full time, it's very hard to make a lot of money. So 19% is the most of the time students fall under that bracket from 0 till 45K if you consider this financial year. So 19% is that percentage that gonna be taxed. But the thing is, up till 18,200, you don't have to pay because that's the limit in there. Okay. Anything above 18,200 till 45, then 19% comes into play. And then if the employer has deducted more than what it should have been, then you will get a refund. This is how it works.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Thank you so much for clarifying that. There was also a question raised by another student as to whether he will be getting all the money for the work he has done throughout the year. So what do you have to say in this regard?
Okay, so there are a lot of myths or misconceptions here when it comes to the first year for anyone in this country. People say when you are in here for the first year, you get everything that was deducted from your pay during the year. But it is correct sometime, but it's not correct all the time. People have general conception about this, that generalize this one, but we have a particular, legal backing or the law, and how it works is, so most of them, if they started fresh this financial year, and then they did not make $18,000, then what happens is over the period when they were paid from their employer, something was deducted, like 200 a week or 100 a week. So they did not make 18,200, but still there were around $1,000 deducted. So all of these group of people will get back everything, and then they might create a generalized opinion that, okay, no, for everyone this is the same. So you work whatever deducted, everything you will get back, but not. So how it works is, even though you are fresh and first time in this country, the very first year you work, if you haven't crossed that limit, the 18,200, plus even there are even you cross that 18,200, then still we have some sort of offsets, low income tax offset, low and middle income tax offset. So that way, I think around 22,000 something, even if your income goes up to that point, considering those offset, your taxes will still be nil. Then you get those deducted refund, whatever was deducted from you. So technically speaking, if your income is on the lower part, so you get everything. But once you exceed that limit, and then your offsets are not able to cope up with the extra taxes, then after that limit, you have to pay. Say, for example, someone earns $20,000. So 18,200 is the basic limit. So, but now he has earned 20, he would have some taxes on it, but there would be some low and middle income tax offsets. Low and middle income offsets. So these offsets will come into play, and even with this 20,000 income, he end up paying nothing. So in that case, if there was $2,000 deducted from his pay earlier, he will get everything back. But say let's change this situation, and if he earns 30K or 35K, in that case now he have to pay, because all his limit, he's way above the limit. And even considering all the offsets, still there are taxes to be paid. Now, say for example, if his tax is $4,000, I'll calculate on the total income of around 30K, then it's just an example, it's not exactly true. And then after, if the deduction were $5,000, then he only gets $2,000. Okay. So in this case, he won't get everything back, even though he's an international student or he's first year in this country. So how it works is based on the slab. So if you are inside the slab, inside that income group, yes, you will be getting. If you're not, you exceed, then you are not getting everything.
Sure. And if there are any specific questions from the comment section, I will just take it
Yeah,
up.
you can pick up. Yes.
Question. Maybe the students might have their own specific queries.
Yeah.
Would be happy if people who are watching us on Facebook Live can directly post their comments on the Facebook section, Facebook Live section. I can also look at the chat section, comment section here, which says that I have a question. If we are receiving scholarship from UNSW Sydney,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
tax exempted, do we still need to lodge tax return? And how do we lodge the tax return? This
Okay.
is a
So it's
question
very,
from Anand.
yeah, very, good question here. So a lot of university students, particularly the PhD ones, are doing research. They may be getting these scholarships. So a scholarship in general is tax exempt income. Okay.
Mhm.
So, but there are conditions. So it must be a full-time student. Okay. And it should be purely for the educational purpose. So there are few conditions. So when you meet those conditions, and these scholarships become exempt income. Okay. So you don't have to pay taxes on that one. And then when they pay you these scholarship incomes, and usually they don't deduct anything from that payment. Okay. So if nothing was deducted and the whole income is exempt, and then you actually don't have anything to pay to the ATM. Okay.
Mhm.
Now, if you want to do your taxes, then those income, even though you include that one as your income, then ultimately we have to put it as an exemption there, and then your taxable incomes become zero. So that's the effect of that one. But there are conditions, so we need to be very careful and have to decide case by case what sort of scholarship or what sort of grant they are receiving. But yes, there are scholarship and grants which are tax exempt.
Sure. Also related to Medicare, Prakash, people might want to know what is Medicare and how does it impact the international students? Are there any international students eligible to claim the benefits from their OSHC?
Okay, now this Medicare is a good topic here. Even for a student, it is of importance because once you are in this country for more than 6 months, like most of these visas are also more than 6 months, so you are treated as a resident, in tax. So what happens is you will have to get this exemption certificate from Department of Human Services. And when you lodge your tax return, and you have to give that exemption certificate to your tax agent. So this way, what happens is, even though the 2% applies to you by because you are a tax resident, but still you have that exemption because for the temporary visa holder, you can claim this exemption. So they will definitely give this certificate. So once you have this certificate, when you lodge your tax return, you can just give that certificate to your agent. Then whatever 2% is calculated on your income, that will go out. So, it's a benefit. This one part, okay? So even though it is computed, but you can always claim an exemption. So there are steps on doing this. There is a form that you have to fill and have to send to Department of Human Services. So, and from there you will receive a letter. If the letter specifically says, for this financial year, this is not, liable to Medicare entitlement. So this is what they say. So once you have that one, you don't have to pay the medical levy. Okay. And now the other thing is OHSC. Most of these visa holder, for them to maintain the visa here, they have to do this health insurance thing, right, for the student. So the issue is this private health insurance rebate. There is a rebate for private health insurance, but OHSC doesn't come under that. I think there is a sound coming from one of the participants somewhere. Okay, anyway.
I'll do that. I'll just request the people to mute themselves when Prakash is speaking so that it's clear to the people who are watching us on Facebook Live, right? So I've just muted that participant. So now you can continue speaking.
Okay, so when it comes to Medicare and your insurance, will that insurance bring any tax benefit? A lot of students have this query, will that insurance, they pay a lot of good amount of insurance. I think around more than $2,000 in 1 year. So the point is, if you are here on that uh, student visa, and then you're paying, this is called overseas health cover, OHS is something, right? So by having that, you can't claim a tax benefit. Okay? That doesn't qualify for healthcare, insurance rebate.
Sure, sure. I think you were also talking about some certificate now
Yes.
related to OSHC. So on the Facebook Live, I've got a comment from Shruti Shankar, who has raised this question that how do you get this certificate and can we lodge for this online?
Okay, two things. One is you can always do yourselves, and then you can take a help of tax agents. Okay, there's two ways you can do. You have a form. If you go and search Medicare Entitlement Exemption Certificate, if you search it, you will come with the ATO link and all. There will be a form, PDF form, and you have to fill that form. And there is an email address on that form. Once you fill everything, they will ask you a copy of your passport attested, a copy of your visa, current visa, or the visa that you were in for that financial year for which you are applying. Okay, these two things. You fill the form, put these attachment, and then send back to that email on the form. Then it will take around 4 weeks. It's the normal time, 4 weeks. Okay. So after that period, they will send you in your postal address a letter. It's called exemption certificate. So with that exemption certificate, you go to any tax agent, and then they won't apply that 2% Medicare levy on your return. So your refunds will be a bit bigger. Okay. But sometime there is, sometime you went to a tax agent or you did by yourself, and then, by default, the Medicare levy was applied, and you realize that, okay, you are entitled to this exemption. Then what you can do is you can always apply that letter afterwards, get that certificate or the letter, and then send it to ATO. You can send yourself, or you can take the help of the tax agent. Then whatever tax you paid extra, which you are not supposed to, ATO will give back to you. Okay, so that means you can do it earlier, get the certificate, and then lodge it, and then you don't have to pay the Medicare levy at that point itself. Okay, your refunds are higher. But sometime, but not knowing this, you did it, and there was a medical levy on your tax, and then that means your taxes were a bit high, and then your refund was less, and you realized it afterwards. Then you can do it for your previous years as well. So, for example, you can go and check your MyGov and see whether maybe you are an international student for 2 to 3 years now already, but in a couple of years you did your taxes by yourself. And while doing your taxes by yourself, most of the time, the Medicare levy is by default, yes. So you have to change it manually, or else by default, it will apply there. Okay. And sometimes, even with the agency, they might put it there because you don't have the certificate. So even for previous years, you can get those certificates and apply, and then you can get back those money.
Sure. I think that should be very useful.
Yeah. Very easy is you can get these forms very easily on Google, and then it's a very plain and simple form, 2 attachment, and there is a email address there in the form. Have to send that whole thing on that email, and you can follow them. There is a number. You can give a follow-up call in a couple of weeks, or else around 4 weeks time, they will come back to you in your postal address with the letter. And then with that letter, you can either send to ATO or give it to your tax agent. Yes.
Sure. And there is another question which is coming from the students, and this might be a question for a lot of other international students as well, that if someone is working in hospitality sector and they're also doing another job along with that, so do they breach their visa conditions as a student?
Okay. Here, I'm not, I have to say that for the visa matters, I may not be the right person to comment a lot on this. On the tax angle, for tax, so long as you are working, you are earning, and you are declaring and you are paying, for tax, it's a different issue. Okay, so you earn, you pay tax. But for your visa compliances, you have to check your conditions, I guess. You have all of your visa have a visa condition. So while working, the general rule is follow your visa conditions. Okay. So if your visa condition allow you to work a lot of places, it'll be fine. But on depth about these visa, I think I may not be the expert on the other part of the visa. Yes.
Yeah, but do you have any useful resources which the students can look at, like?
Oh, the first thing you check is if you see a visa with the conditions. Okay, one thing is your main visa has a condition, say 20 hours. So that means legally you are entitled to do 20 hours. And then if you are breaching, then you are breaching the rules for the immigration. Then the other one is always in between, like COVID, we have a lot of changes from the government. They allowing people for different sectors, like critical sectors. I think nursing and then hospitality of late, I think they can work like full hours, I think. So they're not very sure, but there is some generous consideration. They can work more than they were supposed to when they had that visa originally. Okay. So just double check your visa conditions or any of the announcement from immigration. And because you have to comply those ones. But even whatever visa condition you have, so long as you have worked in this country, earned in this country, you have to pay the taxes. Okay. Yes, you may be breaching visa conditions. You may be breaching visa condition in your immigration point of view. Okay. But for the taxes point of view, wherever you work, they're gonna pay you, they're gonna deduct you. You have to show the income and then have to pay the taxes. Yes. But yeah, you have to always be careful about your visa conditions. Yes.
Also related to the car expenses, there was a question that which part of the car expenses can be claimed in the tax? Very specific question. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good question. It comes into the deductions part of the tax returns, tax computations. Okay. So a lot of people will have, okay, what sort of expenses we can claim? And because the claims will help them to reduce their taxable income and then their refund will go up. Okay. So uh, specifically speaking, the car expenses part. Okay. So for any expenses to qualify for a deduction, there are a few conditions that need to be met. Okay. The first thing, that expenses should have to be incurred, that means have to be spent, and then it have to be for your work purpose. The income that you have earned and that now you are showing in your tax return, that expenses should be related to earning that income. Okay, so that's one point. Say for example, now how it works is you have a car, you go uni 2-3 days, and then you go in another job, you do a job. Now, you drive your car to go to uni, and also you drive your car to go your work. And then if you say, okay, all these petrol and all these expenses, can I claim in there? So basically no, because you need to only, claim those ones which are related to the your income. So even then, there are other further conditions when it comes to car expenses. Okay, so that is any travel from your home to the place of work. So like you started morning from your home, you went to the work. So that is not counted. Okay, you can't claim that part. Or anything when you come back, you can't. But anything between the jobs, say you finish one job and then take your car, go to another job. Or you can take your local train or train or bus in between the shifts or in between two jobs. That qualifies. Okay. But from home to work and then from work to coming back, any expenses, any travel, car or anything won't qualify for that one. Okay. But sometimes people work in such, areas wherein they have to travel, say for example, if you are a salesperson working on somewhere as a marketing, then what happens is you go from your home, but after you reach your office, you take a car and go a lot of places, you visit a lot of your clients. In that case, now you can claim a major part of your, car expenses. And and this is the how we can claim. We have a different methods there. Is you have to put all the receipts. One way is you put all the receipts together, and then you have your logbook to differentiate between how much was done for your work and how much was for your personal. So usually one way is put all the receipts like petrol, like repairs and all this together and total your expenses. And then you have your logbook. So that logbook says, okay, out of the total travel done in this financial year, this much kilometer was for my work, this much was for my personal. Then you come with a percentage. Then you apply the percentage with your expenses. Then that percentage will be related to the job. And other way around is ATU has given a choice that you can claim cents per kilometer method. So up to 5,000 kilometer, you can just go straight cents per kilometer method, wherein you don't have to keep all the receipts. But yeah, you need to have explanation of why you have considered this much kilometers for your work purpose. Okay. In that case, you can get a flat cents per kilometer deduction, and it's much easier.
Sure. As of now, I don't have any questions from Facebook Live, but I think there are comments in the Zoom chat. So, there is a question from Ruben Lee where he is asking, is money awarded from winning any kind of competition subjected to tax? So if they have won any money from a competition in the university, is it subjected to tax?
Okay. Most of the time, awards and scholarship, okay, these are exempt income, and any other ones we have to be checked case by case basis. Okay, what are the conditions around that? Okay, whether there were any conditions for that. So we have to individually check that once. But in general, awards, scholarships are exempt income. Also, sometimes lottery income and all these are not taxed in Australia. Okay, so yes, most of the time, but we have to check the individual scenario.
Sure. Thank you so much, Prakash, for that answer. I would request people who have joined us on Facebook Live, if you have any questions, or even if people here on Zoom, if you have got any questions, you can also come on the video and ask him directly. I think there is another question coming from Vaishnavi, where she is asking that what is the difference in filing tax return if you are working a job on TFN and the other on ABN simultaneously?
Okay, so here, TFN is when you work in a TFN, your employer will deduct taxes while paying you, like weekly or fortnightly. But when you are working on an ABN, it's a taxable income. So initially, they may not deduct money from your pay, but at the end of the year, you have to declare both of your income, like your ABN income and your TFN income, both comes together. So when we do a tax return, it's not like your TFN is done separately, your ABN is done separately. No, both of them combined will go together, and then out of the total income, your taxes will be calculated, and then either you have to pay or you get refund. So the thing is, it will be clubbed together, and then it will be calculated the final one.
Sure.
And do you want one point is when you do your tax, and when you work on ABNs, most of the time, people will have to pay at the end of the year. The reason being is on when you work on TFN, what happens is the employer deducts money most of the time, and then at the end of the year, you don't have to do it. Most of the time, you get refunds. But when there is an ABN income, then there is nothing deducted most of the time. Okay, and then when you club it and your total income at the end of the year, so that part was never deducted. So you might end up paying something due to that fund. Okay? So that's how it works.
Sure. I'm just looking at the other questions, if there are any, because I cannot find any questions. Maybe Amit, if you can tell me, am I missing out on any question here? There is another question on the Zoom chat, Prakash, which says, what's the likeliness of getting a tax deduction from my business setting up expenses when my business has made minimal income in the financial year? Most of the expenses were for renovation and transportation.
Okay, so I'm not a bit clear about his circumstances. So if he has a business or he's a student, or we need to be very clear about business and then the employment part, because we have that expenses and deductions. This principle works a bit differently in these two scenarios. So if you just set up a business, but I'm getting a stipend as well. Okay, just set up a business. Okay, then from my business setting up expense. Okay, so setting up a business here you can do through company, or sometimes people do through ABN. Okay. So you have to calculate your business part separately, at least the calculation through it. So if you are in an ABN, so business can be done two ways, right? One is under your ABN, sole trader, we say. Another is you have a company. Okay. So if you do a company, then the whole identity is different from you. So you are a separate taxpayer. Your company, the business that you're running, if it's a company, you become a different taxpayer. So we have to calculate that differently and then lose that differently. Okay. And here, if that business is in ABN, then still you have to calculate it differently. You have to put the income one side and all the related expenses to earn that income one side and club it. Okay. So now when it comes to income, getting a tax deduction from a business, setting up expenses. Okay. Sometimes what happens, I think what he's asking is he set up the business and then he has a lot of expenses initially. So that means he will be on a loss. Okay. So in that case, what we can do is he can do the return. So all the expenses if they are directly related to that business or earning money from that business, though he may not have earned the money, he can actually put them, and then there would be excess expenses there on that particular year. And it's a tax loss. It could be carried forward to the next year. And next year, when you have an income, say this year, you have 2,000 income and then 5,000 on our expenses, because being a first year, you have to do more setup and renovations, right? Like you have to set up an office and everything, and then you put depreciation for this. So your income is less, your expenses are high, so you become loss to you. So you can take that for next year. And next year, when you earn $10,000 income, net income after the expenses, and these losses, they will adjust with that. So not this year, these expenses will play in the next year. Okay. But it depends what sort of a structure you have, like your company, you have ABN. Okay. So this is how it works.
Sure, I think.
But I'm getting stipend as well. Yeah. Stipend is always, it comes under that scholarship and grant and awards. So long as you are fulfilling all the conditions of that exempt income, then it won't be taxed. But sometimes the stipend, you're a part-time, say you need to be a full-time. So if you're part-time and getting stipend, then I don't think you'll get that exemption. Okay. So these things work differently under different circumstances. But in general, a stipend, a scholarship awards, they are, exempt.
Sure. Till the time we get another question, one last question, maybe you can just sum up quickly, Prakash, as to what are the key points we have discussed in this whole session. Like maybe some of the students might have joined us late. So for them, if you can just quickly talk about on the tax fraud and, the key things.
Yeah, I will just summarize and main point that, the taxpayers or the student have to take care of is, yes, first is be safe with this sort of scammers and don't give your personal information, nothing to them. And if you have to if you're confused, give a call to ATO. Okay, sometimes you might feel, okay, what should I do? You can always give a call to ATO. If you don't have a tax agent, don't worry, ATO will help you with this. Okay, they have a dedicated team, so you can give them a call, say, okay, this is happening to me. Is that correct? Is one solution. You can call. Yes, there is a waiting time when you call ATO. It's around 20 minutes, 25 minutes. That's on one point. And then if you have your tax agent, then you can give them a call saying, okay, what is going on? This is coming to me. Is that true? Then that gets sorted out. Okay, don't involve yourself too deep onto this kind of scammers. You can report to ATO now. So if you're really confused about these things, so don't take things from your own side, being going in a panic situation. So this one point, protect yourself from your information from this scammer. This one, and then other one for international students is you are fairly new in this country, first couple of years, and taxes are a bit different. So one thing is all the income that you earn, unless they are specifically exempt in tax laws, it is taxed. Okay, and then you have to do a tax return every year. There are few conditions wherein you don't have to do your tax return. Okay, there are fewer conditions, or else everyone should have to do taxes. So few conditions are you don't earn at all. Okay, then you can say nil lodgement advice we can give need lodgement advice. So you don't have any figure on that one, okay? And there is like $2,000 income and there is no tax deducted on it. So still you can go with a nil lodgement thing. But the thing is, if there is something deducted while paying to you during the year, say your income was $2,000, $20 was deducted, you still have to do the tax return. This is the problem. Okay, so most of the time you have to do your taxes end of the year. Due dates are usually, if you do yourself, October is the time. And the tax office, they are ready somewhere around second week of July. So people, you can start doing your taxes, and then around second week of July, they start giving you the money back. It usually takes 3 to 5 working days minimum, but you can expect things to go around five working days max of a week time. Give a week time, okay, from 3 to 5 working days when you lodge, and then it will, the refund will come to you. It will come to your bank account. And other thing is, be very careful about putting your bank details on your tax returns or while giving to your taxes. Because if your bank details are wrong, at your time, they have to process the return and it will go to someone else's bank account. Okay, so be very careful about giving the bank account while doing your taxes. Even if you do it yourself, make sure double check the account is correct. Even if you come to your tax season, make sure you double check and give the details. So this is, and then there is another thing. You'll be prepared about your medical exemption. It's always good to have these things beforehand. So the very first week you can start sending. You get these forms, you Google it, get the form, fill the form, send it to Department of Human Services, and by the time that they come to you, it's a good time that you can go to your accountant with that form in your hand. So when you have that exemption certificate, then it's easy for everyone to claim that thing. So your refund will be higher this way. Okay? So any other thing is yes, expenses. So you can put together all the receipts, for all the expenses that were specifically for work purpose. It's good to have these ones, with you, and then it will save you some money, So, say for example, work-related expenses, like few work-related expenses that you can claim. Work-related travel, like you work 2 places, and then from finishing from one place, you start the other job. So the travel in between, you can claim. So how are you going to prove that one? So you have an Opal card which is registered. So if you have an Opal card that is registered, you can take a statement at the end of the month from the Opal card, right? And it has all the journeys there. Yeah, you can calculate that way. So easy. And if you're using your phone a lot of time, like you're working somewhere, you have to use your phone or your internet, you have your phone bill. And then you can say, okay, this part of that phone bill was for, so this phone bill. And then last year, if you've done your tax return with Imagine, you paid money for your taxes, you can claim that one as well. Okay. And then uniform, laundry, dry cleaning. If you have a specific uniform in your workplace, then buying that uniform, laundry, dry cleaning, you can claim those ones. And then, work travel, you have car expenses as well, but everything, all these should have a direct nexus with your income. Okay.
Sure. And I think one of the students is asking the basic question, when do you have to file your tax return? I think you told second week of July, but do you have any...
After the end of the financial year, usually, so people say, okay, can we file from the very first July? So I say, yes, you can technically, but if you are not prepared, they have to maintain the system and everything. So in my experience up to this, usually the first batch of refunds will come only after 10th of July. I've seen this one. So even though we can process, so we can get this information, we can prepare them. But many times our software are not prepared for the first week. We have to wait for them to prepare for the current year. You have to change that, update the rates and everything. So my experience is best time, like you organize everything couple of weeks in July. And then in the second week, if we go, then you don't have to wait much because there will be, the system will be set up already. ATO will start refunding. Then you go, then once lodged, it will take max of around 5 working days for you to get money.
Sure.
And a couple of things people should be careful about is in taxes in Australia, different people will have opinion. People will be expert. They will say, oh, you can claim this. I have claimed this. I've got this much amount of money. And then people say, no, you can claim your this. So if you have to trust professionals. Okay? All of them in here, these opinions are not an expert opinion many times. So and tax office allow you to do your taxes by yourself. You can still make mistake on there, and still they will refund you the money.
Yeah.
So if you don't understand anything, don't actually blindly trust someone. Don't give someone to do your taxes. You have to be very careful about claiming the expenses. The ATO will come back to you, ask you for all the receipts and everything. So you may be on trouble. So be careful about these things.
Sure, Prakash. I think since we are coming to an end to this podcast session, so I would also like to tell everyone that if you have any questions, even after this session, we have created a Facebook group for all the international students. So you can drop your name in this comment section on the Facebook Live, or you can directly message to us, either to me directly or to Prakash, and I'll be more than happy to get you connected to them. And just looking at the questions, if there are no questions, so with this, we might potentially come to an end to our 7th PGC weekly podcast. And we would like to thank Mr. Prakash Bhurtal for taking his valuable time to join us today for this session. And everyone for joining us today through Zoom or Facebook Live, or listening to the recorded version of the same on our YouTube channel. We hope to see you all at our future events as well, including the webinar at 6 p.m. today on the story of the growing startups, where we have got very esteemed panel of guests invited there. And it is a very exciting seminar for the budding entrepreneurs here at UNSW. And obviously the exciting 2-day Opportunities Australia Mentorship Conclave, which is held tomorrow and day after tomorrow. But for now, it's goodbye from my side, and stay safe. I hope that Sydney can come out of this COVID-19 situation. Hopefully everyone stays safe in Sydney and also around the world. And that's it from this seminar. It's goodbye from my side. Any conclusion remarks, Prakash?
Oh yeah, thank you first, Saurabh, giving me the opportunity to express my opinions. Yeah, and yeah, everyone stay safe. Tough times, but yeah, we'll see good times soon. Yeah.
Sure.
We'll see good time with the refunds we'll be getting from ATO.
Sure. And if you have any questions, again, I'm telling you that you can either send in your request directly to us. I think Amit has already posted the link of the group on the chat. Or you can directly contact us and we can get you connected to the respective people who will help you out. So that's it for this evening and this podcast. We will see you on the next podcast series, and also at 6 p.m. today for our next session. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us.
Guys, bye.